Hi, welcome to this daily astrology chat live for January 23rd, 2025. I'm Gina, and I come here every day to talk about the current astrology in general, and answer any questions you might have. Today, we have a really interesting, rare, unique planetary alignment. We have 5 different planets at 23 degrees. So it's an interesting opportunity that really is active for the next couple of days, and I wanted to talk about it. As I'm setting up to discuss this chart, I just wanted to show you guys as I was coming on today. There was just such a beautiful sunset out front, and it's not a picture taken from anywhere gorgeous. It's just from my front porch, but part of me wanted to film out there, and I felt a little torn, and I thought I'll take a picture and then I won't feel as torn. So there's the picture of the pretty sunset that's happening right now. It's just behind me instead of in front of me. We did need to look at the chart today. It wasn't the kind of thing that we could do not using a chart. It's definitely a good day to use a chart because we do have 5 different planets that are a part of this. So let's get those circled on the map, and then we'll talk about what they all mean. Okay, but first let's just sort of lay it out. Okay, so first we have Uranus here at 23 degrees. And Uranus is one of the most powerful, well, it is the most powerful planet in our configuration because it is the slowest moving planet. And whenever you are looking at a transit, whenever you're looking at a conversation between planets, the sort of most dominant energy is the slowest moving planet. So Uranus is a very big and important part of this transit that's going on today and tomorrow, and we may even feel it a bit on Saturday. And Uranus is also super important because Uranus is extra slow at the moment because Uranus is stationing direct. And when the planets are stationing, changing direction, they go even slower. Let's actually also label this because we're going to have so many different planets on our on our grid today that they might need a label. So Uranus is a very important planet in our transit. It's at the 23 degrees. It's the slowest moving, so it's really dominant. And that's especially true because it is stationing direct right now. I knew I had something else I wanted to say about this degree point. Here's what it is. Do you remember in the late spring when we had those solar flares? When we had those solar flares, it happens sometimes, but these ones were particularly intense. It just so happened to be that was occurring when we were having a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Jupiter's here now, but Jupiter was right here, and the sun as well. So it was, well, I'm sorry, Jupiter and Uranus aligned just before that. And then when the sun came to hit that point, that's when we had the solar flares. And now Uranus has backed up to that point. Excuse me for the confusion there. In other words, this point in the sky is related to those solar flares that we had in the spring, and also to the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction story that began in April. So we can say it's an important part of the sky. This may relate to a story in your life that has been unfolding for a while. Although the alignment that we're talking about occurs today and tomorrow, this story may have begun, earlier in the spring. Okay, let's get some other planets labeled that are at these points. Okay, also at this time, we have Mars retrograde in Cancer at the 23 degree point. And this is a little more significant than it would usually be because Mars is retrograde. That's something that happens every 2 years. It brings the energy of the planet inward. it focuses the energy of the planet in a different way. This can relate to stories. This says that, this alignment relates to stories perhaps around emotions, around stories related to home, to family of origin, perhaps to your mother, to your parents. Um, and it can also be like your physical home, but it can really be anything related to Mars energy as well. But I think that this placement adds action to the story. It adds some emotion to the story. Um, I kind of need to put the whole thing together to really explain. Let's keep adding here. And then we can really kind of talk about the whole thing in totality. Because what I was getting hung up with there was the fact that I really wanted to mention Mercury being across the way. So we have Mars. We have Mars retrograde in Cancer. And then we have Mercury right across the way and in opposition to that Mars. And so while this Mars energy is turning inwards, like I was saying, and it's sort of emotional and it's processing, I feel like with Uranus and Mercury in this alignment, it suggests that there's more potential for there to be an outward expression. Mercury opposed Mars can certainly be an argument, a conflict, a verbal disagreement of some kind. With Uranus there, it could sort of come up suddenly or unexpectedly. But I think it could also be just a realization, especially because this Mars energy is so inward. And yeah, Mercury is not just communication, it's ideas and information. So it could be that you sort of have like a sudden realization around a story that you've been working on for a while. But I also think when we have so many different planets, not that I've really seen this a lot, this is kind of interesting to have the 23-degree point be so active in so many different parts of the sky. But when we have that, I think it suggests different stories kind of coming together. Something falling into place that causes other things to fall in place for you and me, for all of us. So maybe, like, for example, you could have a realization or an idea, and then because of that, it makes you realize what you need to do in other areas as well. Or you could have a conversation or a conflict, and it affects multiple areas of your life, the way you think, not just about that interaction, but other interactions or other parts of your life as well. That's because we have multiple parts of the sky activated. Okay, let's label our last two planets in this 5 planetary configuration. Okay, next we have Venus. And you'll see that Venus right now is at 20 degrees. Venus will not come into this 23-degree point and this alignment until a little bit later in the week. I think it's tomorrow. It might on Friday, but it might be Saturday, but very soon, and certainly with an orb right now, right? At 20 degrees, awfully close. And I like that Venus is rounding it out. Venus is the sort of closing aspect of this big configuration. And I really love that because Venus is exalted in Pisces. This is Venus's favorite place to be. So this is bringing some exalted Venus energy to this story. It is assuring me that any difficulty that comes up along the way with this, it's ultimately for the good. It might be uncomfortable, but with Venus rounding it out, making meaning, making it beautiful, bringing in those exalted Venus themes. It's not just love, it's unconditional love. It's not just compassion, it's empathy. That being the end of the story is so great, right? So if any sudden realizations come up, I say sudden because of Uranus. I say realizations because of Mercury. If they're a little difficult, I say that because of Mars. know that Venus um, is here as well. And that ultimately, once you sort of sit with this story for a little while, perhaps there could be something a bit surprising. Once the surprise kind of wears off, you'll be able to process this whole thing, and it's ultimately really, really for the good. I think this is a story that might affect multiple areas of our lives because it's across the chart in so many different houses. Let's get our last planet labeled here. Have you noticed it? Have you found it on the chart? It's not there quite yet. And in a way, you might think I'm cheating because it's the moon. And is the moon a planet? Well, the moon is a planet in astrology, very much so, and a very powerful one. The reason why, in a way, I kind of think I'm cheating, but not. But the reason I kind of think I'm cheating a little bit to include the moon is that the moon moves very quickly. So if we're talking about a 24-hour period or a 36-hour period, it's very likely that the moon will come into configuration with everything that we're talking about. However, it's really beautifully aligned right at this 23-degree point, and the moon is in Scorpio. And the moon has a little bit of a difficult time in Scorpio. It's a very intense placement for the moon. So that makes it stand out to me, even a little bit more. We're also looking at an opposition with that Uranus, right? It's in perfect opposition to that Uranus. Just like Mercury and Mars are opposing each other, we have the moon and Uranus opposing each other. So there's these planets are relating to each other in all different ways. It's very interesting. uh, this is rare. I don't see this all the time at all. For planets, this many planets in this many different parts of the sky to all be activated at the same time is a very interesting conversation taking place at the end of this week. This week has been incredibly interesting already. The Pluto-Sun conjunction earlier in the week was intense and interesting, very rare, probably the most intense and powerful transit the of the month for sure, maybe even of the year. But I mean, even just our nodes recently changed signs. There's just a lot happening in the astrology right now that's incredibly poignant. And I think that we can see that in the collective. We can see that there's a lot happening in the world. How are you seeing that also in your life? Your life is influenced by the collective, your life in a separate sense. How are you feeding back in and contributing to the world around you in a meaningful way? How is it contributing to you? You want to kind of be aware of all those different stories. And I would say at the end of this week, today, Thursday, the 23rd, I mean, first of all, it is interesting that it's the 23-degree point and it's happening on the 23rd. I don't do a lot of numerology. That's just not my medium. I enjoy astrology, but I think of them as sort of all classes at the same college. They might be different classes, different courses of study, but they don't disagree with each other. So I can't help but notice 23 degrees on the 23rd. I think it suggests something sudden, maybe surprising with Uranus. It could come about through a conflict. It could be a bit emotional. It could just be a sudden realization or idea that feels a little surprising, kind of throws you off guard. Ultimately, we are warmed up by Venus being a part of that, reassuring us that whatever's coming to the surface, very quickly we are going to make the most of that and see the benefit of that and be better off because of it. The moon adds more of this emotional component and intensity to it, perhaps suggesting new realizations and learning new things as well. Moon in Scorpio is self-protective and a detective, listening, a very, very good listener, picking up on lots of information. So I'd be curious if anything like this is coming to the surface for anyone. If you notice some realization or some new idea coming in, and not only does figuring that out help you figure out like a work situation but that also helps a living situation fall into place, or a relationship situation to fall into place, or your self-expression. You understand that in a different way, the way you care for yourself, the way you move through your daily routines. Is it sort of a little bit of a domino effect where having this story come together in one place helps it unfold in others as well? With so many different houses affected, I can't help but wonder if that could be the case. Um, so we have not been using the chat nearly as much as I had hoped. So I hope that we will start to use it more. I would love to hear your questions about the astrology that we're talking about now, or about anything about astrology in general, or about your chart. I really want to help with these daily chats, and I really want to feel more connected to the community, feel like it's more of a back and forth. So if you're watching this later, please feel free to leave any comment in the chat at any time. I'm reading all my comments, of course, and responding to them right away. Sometimes I might build a response into a daily chat, and I would or into these daily video recordings, and I would let you know. I would respond to your chat and send a link to that if I do it that way. So stay in touch. Have a wonderful day. Give this video a like, please, if you enjoyed it. Maybe share it. Watch some other videos on my channel. And just thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all your support. And I will be back again tomorrow. Have a great day.